Hi, I'm Ashton. I grew up with my two loving parents, my dad and mom. I have many great memories of my family when I was younger, but all that changed one day. My dad went out on a business trip to an expensive resort. He ended up falling head over heels for a beautiful model staying at the resort with him. When he got back home, she was all he could talk about for days. My mother was getting pretty annoyed with him until he finally dropped the subject. When he went on his next business trip a month later, we found out it was to the same resort. He was only gone for a few days, but when he came back, he had the model with him. My mother was furious now. I heard them fighting from my room. It was intense, and my mom was letting him have a piece of her mind. I guess that must have been the last straw, because the very next day, he kicked her out. She was upset and crying, but he didn't care. He had the model, and he loved her more than my mother. So, my dad told my mom that she wasn't needed here anymore. He even gathered her things for her. It was all so sudden, I didn't even get to say goodbye. My mom tried to get back inside, but my dad locked the door and refused to let her in. That was the last time I saw my mom. I was heartbroken by my mom's leaving, but I still had my dad, so I thought we might still be able to get along. Soon, I learned the truth. My dad completely ignored me. He was so focused on his new girlfriend that he hardly noticed me. I tried to spend some time with him by taking him with me on a road trip, but he invited the model along with us. He bought her some expensive jewelry and completely ignored me the whole time. It completely ruined the trip that I had planned for my dad and I to do. He didn't even stay the whole time. He left halfway through the trip with his girlfriend to spend some time alone together. If that wasn't bad enough, I noticed something else that was even more alarming. My dad was spending a lot of money on this girl, giving her all kinds of nice gifts, while I, his own son, hardly got anything. I'm not selfish or greedy, so don't get that idea. But when my dad is spending thousands of dollars on this girl, instead of spending it on more important things, like our house, car, or even food, then it's a big problem. But he crossed the line when I found out his greatest offense against me. Since I was a boy, I had a treasured baseball, signed by my favorite player, and it's worth a lot of money. But my dad decided one day to sell it without even asking me. Then he used the money to buy the model a new coat. I was livid from that moment on. And from that moment on, I planned to get revenge on my uncaring father. One day, after my dad had left for work and his girlfriend was off on a gig, I invited my girlfriend over for the day. We spent most of the day watching movies, talking, and laughing with each other. But when it got later in the afternoon, I put one of her favorite romance movies on, which I knew she enjoyed. It wasn't long before she started to make a move on me, placing her hand on my shoulder and snuggling close to me. Soon, we kissed and ignored the movie entirely. I took her to my dad's room, where we began to make out. It got pretty intense, and just like I had expected after putting on that specific movie, it was exactly what I wanted. While we kissed, I heard the front door open. I made sure to make a lot of noise as we made out, pushing her against the wall and moaning softly as I heard footsteps approaching. The door slammed open, and my dad stood there with a red face. My girlfriend was shocked as he just barged in on us. But he only cared about me. He began shouting at me, berating me for invading his privacy like that, and I should be ashamed of myself. He even slapped me across the face. My girlfriend ran off, and I followed her. But my dad grabbed a nearby clock, throwing it at me. It nearly missed my head as I ran for my life. He kept yelling at me to get out of his room, and that if he ever caught me there again, he'd kill me. When my girlfriend and I were safe outside, I explained everything to her, and she had understood exactly what I was doing. She forgave me for involving her, and I said goodnight as I returned to my home. Things were a bit tense between my dad and me after that. If there was one thing worse than being ignored by him, it was being hated by him. I had brought my girlfriend into his room while we were making out because I knew nothing would make him madder at me than invading his personal space and being intimate there. I went to bed that night with a sore cheek, but I knew now that it was only a matter of time before I solved this problem for good. The next morning, I woke up to a police officer knocking on our door. When my dad answered it, he was placed under arrest immediately. As they took him away, they checked on me and my bruised face. I just watched him getting taken away in the back of a cop car with satisfaction. When I had gone into his room with my girlfriend, I had also hidden a camera in there earlier. So, when my dad came into his room and went on his rampage, the camera caught all of it. After I said goodnight to my girlfriend last night, I also made a quick stop by the police station and dropped off the footage. They saw him hitting me and throwing the alarm clock, and that was enough for them to spring into action. Once my dad was taken to jail, the model left me and returned to her old home. I sold a lot of our possessions and even our house to gather enough money to head off on my own. I decided to search for my mother, somewhere in the city, so that's where I'm heading now. I know she's out there, and with my father and his girlfriend not holding me back anymore, and the money from selling our things in my pocket, I'm ready to go find her. Wish me luck! Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.